Today.
And greetings, everyone. Welcome to this Wednesday edition of AFA Today. Fred Jackson sitting in for Kevin McCullough today. It is the day after the State of the Union address. So did you stay up last night and watch it? It doesn't quite have the ratings of the Super Bowl and some other things like that. I'm told not a lot of people bother to stay up anymore because they think nothing is going to change because of it. Nevertheless, in case you didn't stay up or you missed some of it last night, along with the Republican response, I'm going to talk a little bit about that today and give you a little chance to sound off on all of this. Now, one of the big things coming out of the State of the Union address last night from the president, he seems very proud of the idea that if he has to, he's going to use his executive power to say there's going to be an increase in the minimum wage, specifically for federal contracts. And he's willing to sign off on that. And the figure he's chosen is $10.10 an hour. Now, those are for contracts down the road. A little fact checking on it clarifies there's actually not many people are going to benefit from it. First of all, it doesn't kick in until 2015. But as I say, it's something he was very proud of, obviously, because this morning he took his State of the Union show on the road. And he went out to a suburb in Maryland, went to a Costco out there, a Costco, one of those big department stores. Some parts of the country have them, some of them don't. Kind of like a Big Sam's, if that's what you have in your area. But he went to this Costco, and he says it's time to give America a raise. Now, everybody likes a raise, but there are repercussions when raises occur because the costs to the company go up and they pass those costs along to you and me, the customer. So he goes to this Costco this morning in suburban Maryland, and he said entry-level Costco employees start at $11.50 an hour. Well, that's good. I'm glad for those Costco employees, but as I say, let's be very clear. Whenever the government decides to do something or a company decides to do something, they on-pass those costs on down the road. So what is going to happen to this? He's getting a lot of criticism for his proposal. Number one, wanting to use executive power to bring this in, but also what it means for the consumer when you start increasing $10.10. The federal minimum wage now is $7.25. You do the math on that, so that's a 30-40% increase in wages. How is the American public going to react to all of this? Well, as I say, you may not have watched the program last night, so what we want to do for you right now is play a little bit of the highlights coming out of the State of the Union address last night, and just a few minutes after that, we're going to play for you the response from the Republican Party. Came from a little-known congresswoman, but I think you're going to be very impressed with what she had to say also. But first, let's hear a little bit from what the president had to say last night.
Let's make this a year of action. But America does not stand still, and neither will I. So wherever and whenever I can take steps without legislation to expand opportunity for more American families, that's what I'm going to do. And in 2014, it's an embarrassment. Women deserve equal pay for equal work. It's time to do away with workplace policies that belong in a Mad Men episode. In the coming weeks, I will issue an executive order requiring federal contractors to pay their federally funded employees a fair wage of at least $10.10 an hour, because if you cook our troops' meals or wash their dishes, you should not have to live in poverty. Moms, get on your kids to sign up. Kids, call your mom and walk her through the application. They'll give her some peace of mind, and plus she'll appreciate hearing from you. If Iran's leaders do not seize this opportunity, then I will be the first to call for more sanctions. Believe it. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
There you have it, a little smattering of what the president had to say last night. You will say he managed to insert a little bit about Obamacare there. Not a lot. You heard that little mention, moms get after your kids get after your mom, et cetera, to sign up for Obamacare. And he put out a little warning to the Republicans, let's stop trying to repeal Obamacare. Well, once again, if you were to believe the president, you would think, well, this is something Americans really want. They're all for it. Well, that's not the case. Of course, he didn't talk about, with regards to Obamacare last night, the total dismay that millions of Americans have found themselves in that, remember, they didn't get to keep, as the president promised, they didn't get to keep their health care package. Many are showing up at their doctors only to find out they're going to pay a whole lot more in copays. Their premiums have gone up. Republicans have mentioned in some of their addresses that, they've talked to people whose monthly premiums are going up like about $700. So obviously the president not talking about that last night. He talked a little bit about immigration, one of his pet peeves, and it looks like, quite frankly, the Republicans are going to work on a compromise. Many conservatives are anxious to see what that will involve. A little bit on climate and energy. He talked about jobs, but a lot of people looking at that speech last night were wondering, okay, everybody once again is for creating more jobs. We certainly need it in the economy that we are in today. But there was no mention of the Keystone Pipeline, extending that southern portion, which promoters of that say will create tens of thousands of jobs. But the president, and it's really just waiting on the president now, has been reluctant to give approval of that. And then, of course, he talked a little bit about fighting terrorism, and he talked about Iran. And he wants everybody to give the so-called diplomatic route on Iran some more time, and that he's going to push back about any calls, which, by the way, are coming from Democrats and Republicans, calls for more sanctions on Iran. So when it was all over last night, I think most Americans were left with the impression that nothing new was said and that the president has an agenda, and if he has to use executive orders to push it through, he will. I don't think it did anything to improve his favorability ratings, which are at an all-time low. Now, as I mentioned last night, someone quite new on the Republican scene, at least a new face to most of us in this country, the Republican response came from Kathy McMorris Rogers. She's a congresswoman from Washington State. I might add, before we get a chance to listen to her a little bit and her response last night, she is, best account that I have, is a Christian lady. She's a graduate of Pensacola Christian College down there in Pensacola, Florida. And I just want you to have a listen to her tone and the way her thinking is as far as what America needs to be all about how America needs to be creating jobs and how to go about that. So let's have a listen here to Kathy McMorris Rogers, Congresswoman from Washington State.
What an honor it is for me to be with you after the President's State of the Union. Tonight, we honor America, a nation that has witnessed the greatest rise of freedom and opportunity our world has ever seen. A nation where we are not defined by our limits, but by our potential. And a nation where a girl who worked at the McDonald's drive-thru to help pay for college can be with you from the United States Capitol. But the most important moments right now aren't happening here. They're not in the Oval Office or in the House chamber. They're in your homes, kissing your kids goodnight, figuring out how to pay the bills, getting ready for tomorrow's doctor's visit, waiting to hear from those you love serving in Afghanistan, or searching for that big job interview. After all, we the people have been the foundation of America since her earliest days. People from all walks of life and from all corners of the world. People who come to America because here, no challenge is too great and no dream too big. That's the genius of America. Tonight, the President made more promises that sound good, but won't actually solve the problems facing Americans. We want you to have a better life. The President wants that too. But we part ways when it comes to how to make that happen. So tonight, I'd like to share a more hopeful Republican vision, one that empowers you, not the government. It's one that champions free markets and trusts people to make their own decisions, not a government that decides for you. It helps working families rise above the limits of poverty and protects our most vulnerable. And it's one where Washington plays by the same rules that you do. It's a vision that is fair and offers the promise of a better future for every American. If you would have told me as a little girl that I would one day put my hand on the Bible and be sworn in as the 200th woman to serve in the House of Representatives, I wouldn't have thought it possible. I grew up working on my family's orchard and fruit stand in Kettle Falls, a small town in eastern Washington, getting up before dawn with my brother to pick apples. My dad drove a school bus, and my mom worked as a part-time bookkeeper. They taught me to work hard, help others, and always, always dream for more. So when I showed...
Well, there you have it. Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rodgers giving the official response last night of the Republican Party to the President's State of the Union address. I don't know about you, but when I was listening to her speech last night and then re-listening this morning and catching some segments of it, very Reagan-esque. I don't know if you picked up on that, but how different it is. President Barack Obama believes in big government and that government is the solution to all the problems, and that individuals need government in their lives to get them through. And we see that. This was the president's fifth State of the Union address last night. And what we have seen over the last 5 years is a huge increase in government involvement in our lives. And it's not just Obamacare. It's all things, making decisions for individuals. But then you listen to Congresswoman McMorris Rodgers, and if you heard her background, grew up in this apple farm in the eastern side of Washington State. The liberal part of Washington State is over there in Seattle. She's from the eastern side, the more rural area in there. She worked at McDonald's. She paid her way through college by working. She was the first, actually, to graduate, first in her family to graduate from university. And she goes on to, in her speech, and we didn't get a chance to get to it all, but she basically goes on to talk about the time-honored tradition in this country of people being allowed to excel, to live up to their own potential. But that comes by way of hard work, not bigger government in your life. So as I say, just the impression that I had last night, she's very Reagan-esque. Let's get as much government as we can out of our lives to allow Americans to succeed the way they always have, by working hard, showing initiative, and then being allowed to live up to their potential. So very, very clearly last night, once again, a divide in the political ideology of the two parties. If you were watching last night, listening last night to the speech, of course, Democrats cheering their president along. By the way, the response from Congresswoman McMorris Rodgers was pre-recorded, and she was sitting on a sofa in an office, I assume her office in Washington. Very interesting lady, 3 kids. Her oldest child is a Down syndrome child. She talked a little bit about that last night. And, she just had her 3rd child about 8 weeks ago, so a very experienced mom. Some people say the Republican Party trying to put a more gentler face. The Republican Party has been accused of being too nasty to people. Well, we'll have to wait and see how the people respond to that response from the Republican Party last night. You're listening to AFA Today, 888-589-8840. Want to hear from you, 888-589-8840. What do you think of the State of the Union speech? What about this minimum wage thing? The president wants people to get $10.10 an hour minimum wage. What does that mean? What do you think of the two ideologies of the two party? Big government in your life, or has proposed by Congresswoman McMorris Rodgers, no, get government out of our lives so we can succeed. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. We're back in 3 minutes.